we have to keep the time. So I know I'm looking now the title of our church speaker, Sayan Lot. Sayan he's a PhD candidate, right, in India,
Yes.
in his Department of History in Presidency University. So Sayan will talk about the Baghdadi Jews of Kolkata, a changing cultural identity. So please go ahead, Sayan.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And is my screen visible?
I think it's becoming visible in a second. Yes, now we can see it. Please go ahead.
Okay. Firstly, I would like to thank Israiliyat Journal and ICIJS, the organizers, for inviting me at this conference. So my paper will mainly discuss about the changing culture of the Baghdadi Jews of Kolkata. They originally hailed from the territories, parts of which were under the Ottoman Empire, like Syria, Iraq, Iran, and parts of Yemen. And the Indian Jews can be broadly divided into three historical communities: the Kochinis of Kerala in southern India, the Bene Israel Jews of Maharashtra and Gujarat. They are the most Indianized actually among the three. And the Baghdadi Jews, who would be my subject of study for today, they are the newest and the least Indianized and the most anglicized among the three communities. The city of Calcutta, now called Kolkata, began emerging as a commercial center towards the late 17th and early 18th centuries. This attracted many foreign mercantile communities towards the city, like Armenians, Greeks, Chinese, and Baghdadi Jews. They gave the city a cosmopolitan culture. The reasons behind the arrival of the Baghdadi Jews in Calcutta was initially it was commercial reasons, the rising commercial prospects, but later it was religious persecution by the then Ottoman governor of Iraq, Daud Pasha, and the flooding of the rivers Tigris and Euphrates in the 1830s. And later in early 1910s, there was the final wave of immigration when the Ottoman Empire made the conscription compulsory for all young males. And since 1940s, the Baghdadi Jews began to leave Kolkata. There were many reasons, but the primary reasons were their inability to communicate in Indian languages, the socialist policies adopted by the post-colonial Indian government, and the Indianization of education system in post-independent India. And at present, the community has been reduced to just about 20 to 25 individuals. It reached its maximum extent in about 1940s when there were about 5,000. And the community was founded by Shalom Cohen, who was originally a jeweler hailing from Aleppo in Syria. So in this map of Calcutta, you can see the two pink areas. These two are the main areas where the Jews used to reside. In the central Calcutta region, the Bowbazar area, mainly the lower class Jews used to reside there, and in the Park Street Esplanade region, which formed the part of the European or white town of Calcutta at that time, the upper and affluent Jews resided there. These two were the main regions, and besides this, there was a small pink portion towards the northern side, where you can see written Agorpara jute mills. Those mills were owned by... Yes.
So, sorry for interrupting, but I don't see the flow of the slides there because I think you're referring to map, but we don't see the map. So
okay, now can you see? Yeah. Okay, I think the slideshow was not working correctly. Okay, thank you for mentioning this. Over here, you can see two pink spots over here. The one on the lower side is the Park Street Esplanade region. That was the part of the White Town of Calcutta, and here the Reed Jews used to reside. And the one at the central location, it was part of the Grey Town. And over here, mainly the lower class Jews resided. And regarding the scholarly opinion regarding Anglicization, Anglicization was a watershed moment for the Jews in Calcutta, as they gradually adopted the language, clothes, and culture of the rulers, the British, rather than the ruled who were Indians. And one of the main reasons for this was the shifting of their religious locus from Baghdad to London after the death of the Baghdad's Rabbi Haim Baruch. And their identity has always been flexible and fluid, and always at crossroads across different cultures wherever they resided, with their Jewish core of their religion remaining constant. The transition from a Judeo-Arabic identity in the 19th century towards the Judeo-British identity. That is, by birth they were Indians, but by culture they became British. Scholars like Navras Afridi have viewed this embracing of language and culture of colonial rulers by the Jews across the Perso-Arabic world, who equated westernization with modernization at that time. And this commercially self-sustaining community was a multi-central circuit that stretched all the way from Yemen in Basra till Shanghai in China, and all across those colonial cities they formed communities from Bombay, Calcutta, Colombo, Rangoon, and Hong Kong and Singapore, every cities. They have their own communities, and it was kind of a link in what came to form later the Jewish Asia. They indulged in trade of all communities, starting from opium, gold, silver, wheat, everything. Mavi Simon has named the community as the Jews of the Raj, as their sojourn in India deeply more or less coincided with the arrival and departure of the British. Thomas Timber had mentioned to the community as a grey community and middleman minority. As they were the middlemen in the trades between the Europeans and the other Asians, they took part in the opium trade, and when opium got banned, later they invested in jute, cotton, indigo, and real estate. Flower and Judith Elias Cooper, whose research has mainly been based on the Jews from Calcutta who settled in Britain, they opined that the Jews who went there viewed themselves as Jewish first and British second. Despite their attempts at Anglicization, the Jews from Kolkata actually lost the European status in 1885, never to regain that again. But their partners in trade, like the Armenians and Greeks who were their rivals, they continued to enjoy that status. E.L. Silliman, who is a member of this Calcutta community and one of the most famous scholars to work on the community, has traced this transformation from Judeo-Arabic to Judeo-British to finally a Judeo-Indian identity through 4 generations of women in her family. Her maternal great-grandmother, Farha, who was totally interlocked within the Jewish community, never stepped outside of it. She was totally Judeo-Arabic. And the second person was her maternal grandmother, Miriam, who actually so much inspired by the Anglican culture that she even anglicized her name to Mary. She was the first among one of the few women from her family to step outside the Jewish community and interacted with the outsiders. And there was her mother, who experienced a dual transition. The first one from India, from a colonial to a post-colonial secular republic, and the second one was herself from a Judeo-British identity to a gradual Judeo-Indian identity. She even sang songs for Quit India, shouted slogans while she was a student at Lady Irwin College in Delhi. And there is one anecdote she mentioned that while she came back from Delhi in Salwar Kameez and her mother Miriam saw her in that dress, she became very angry. As the Jews, the Baghdadi Jews especially, normally maintain the distance from Indians, except a few, which I am going to talk later. And finally, Yael herself, who views herself as a completely Indian. Shalva Weil has used the term super diversity to refer to this community, as it was a transnational yet interconnected community. And Chaira Bita's argument regarding the imagined British identity among the Jews of Shanghai, who stayed along the fringes of the British society as collaborators, and yet they were denied the chance to assimilate with the British, can be applied to India, except the anti-Semitism part, because in India, anti-Semitism has mostly existed along the fringes and has never been aimed at directly at the Indian Jews. Nathan Kurtz has an interesting observation that the Hindu caste system, That is a system of social stratification prevalent among the Hindu society in India that was accepted by almost any religion that has stepped foot in India, be it Islam, Christianity, and even Judaism. It exists among the Bene Israel Jews and Kochini Jews, not so much among the Baghdadis as they arrived pretty late. And the caste system actually accepted the Jews as a separate caste-like group and allowed them to maintain their separate existence. He attributes this to be one of the main causes behind the continued presence of Jews in India since ancient times, whereas the Jews of China, India and China, these are actually one of the too few countries where the Jews could exist freely. The Jews in China got gradually assimilated into the Han population, but the Jews in India could maintain their separate existence. Regarding Indianness, 1947 proved to be a moment of crisis for the Baghdadis, with the dual events of Indian independence and partition, they were faced with three options. Firstly, immigration to the English-speaking countries. Most of the Baghdadis chose this option. The second was going to Israel, making Aliyah. Very few chose this option. And the third one, staying in India and becoming a normal citizen, losing their status of privileged minority that they enjoyed prior to 1947. Very few of them chose to stay back, a couple of hundred, I think. This partition violence, although didn't directly affect the Jews, none of them were harmed, but it scarred their psyche. Mention may be made of one incident where Flas Silliman, who actually accompanied their dhobi alongside her brothers and cousins to the ghat to fetch clothes, she actually tried in vain to save a pregnant woman from being killed by a man brandishing a knife. And this event still gives her nightmares. Even in post-independent India, many colonial relics survive, like one incident mentioned by JL, while her father, David Silliman, tried to enter into a posh restaurant in Calcutta dressed in Indian clothes, and she was denied entry as he was wearing Indian clothes and not European clothes. That is the viewing the European as more advanced. This thing has still continued in India till now, even today, viewing everything Western as being more modern and more advanced. Yael Silliman gave an interesting anecdote. While her Indian identity was never challenged in India, but it was challenged in USA by one of her progressive Indian friends, and who even asked her the audacity to tell her that Yael is not really Indian due to her Arabic lineage. And Silliman equated this with the rise of right-wing political party, the BJP in India. However, it is ironical that her uncle J.F.R. Jacob, who was one of the most illustrious persons from the community, he joined the BJP as its security advisor. And a few refugees who arrived during the Second World War in Calcutta chose to stay back in the city while most left. One of them was Bolek Rembom, who originally hailed from Warsaw in Poland. He actually benefited from the visas that were issued by Japanese vice consul there, Chiune Sugihara, who issued them against the orders from Tokyo, and he has to face the consequences once he went back to his country. He came to Calcutta through Poland, through Russia and Japan, and finally he settled over here after marrying a local Baghdadi woman, Mashsia. And later in the 1960s, he became an Indian agent of the US Commodity Company, and finally he died over here in 1975. According to their son, the love for sports united the couple despite their language and cultural barriers. Michael Rembom made the remark regarding his father. My father often spoke of the peace, security, and tolerance that he experienced in India. Ellis Jacob David, a Baghdadi Jew from Bombay, he remarked that we are Indians only. We didn't think ourselves as foreigners. And finally, this famous remark by Lieutenant General J.F.R. Jacob, who played a major role in the liberation of Bangladesh during the 1971 Indo-Pak War and the Bangladesh Liberation War, almost single-handedly ensuring the surrender of the Pakistani army over there. And he said that I am proud to be a Jew, but I am an Indian through and through. Jacob was only the second Indian person to be honored with a plaque at the Ammunition Hill in Israel, where normally the Israeli soldiers and the Jews who have served their country are honored over there. Now I will speak about a rare instance of a Jew or fully identifying with the Bengali identity. Very few Baghdadis identified with the Bengali culture as it was viewed as the culture of the ruled over here. There was an instance of one of Yael Silliman's paternal aunt. who was shunned by the community on marrying stitch clothes worn by Indian women. So, and later, the father actually mother who had not only disgraced me but have shamed me in public. And the only person who I could find was fully assimilated with the Bengali culture was Mordecai Cohen. He originally hailed from Rajshahi, which is currently in Bangladesh, then in Pakistan. He emigrated to India in 1968 due to rising anti-Semitic sentiments. In his of the Pakistan television network, which opened in 1965, and he served that till 1968. And his love for Bangladesh, and he was immensely sad when he was forced to leave his home country. This can be equated to the millions of Hindus who actually came from Bangladesh to India at that time, including my grandparents on both sides. Later he grew angry on seeing his children's book being written in the colloquial Bengali or the Cholit Bhasha instead of the pure Bengali, which is more Sanskritized Sadhu Bhasha, which is more similar to Sanskrit. And his wife Aline remarked that Mordecai perceived himself as a Bengali first. He always referred to himself as Barendra Yehudi or a Jew from Rajshahi or Barendra Bhumi. That brings me towards the end of my paper, and Kolkata Jewry and Indian Jewry in a larger sense presents an alternative picture of a thriving minority community in sharp contrast to European Jewish experience of discrimination and persecution. The last few Jews who were over here tried to maintain a semblance of a religious community through the restoration of the 3 synagogues and getting a rabbi to conduct regular prayers. The civic authorities are aloof as the Jews do not form a vote bank, which is more important in India rather than people. And over here, the Neve Shalom synagogue, which is one of the oldest, yet the newest in synagogue in Calcutta, its front entrance has been occupied by hawkers, so they had to use a side entrance. And one amazing thing is that despite residing in India for more or at least 1,000 years, according to documentary evidence, and for 2,000 years, according to the legends of Kochinis and Bene Israel, they are yet to be granted the minority status by the government of India and are counted as part of others during the census in India. Their population is pretty less. According to the 2011 census, it was 5,000 out of a total of 1.25 billion. And however, they have been recently granted the minority status in 2 states of Gujarat and Maharashtra. That is the home to about 80% of India's Jewish population. Margaret Abraham has referred to the community as a dying community, as the community itself doesn't have a future and most of the people are well above 70, with the youngest person being in her 60s. The community would be extinct within the next 4 or 5 decades, with only their schools, synagogues, and cemetery to tell their tale. Over here is the image of the gradual anglicization that the community experienced in the late 19th and early 20th century. Over on the left side, you can see the same family dressed in their traditional Judaeo-Arabic clothes, and on the right side in European clothes. These are the Jewish schools of Kolkata. On the left side is the Jewish boys' school, and on the right side is the Jewish girls' school. They have an interesting story. Initially, the Jews used to send their children to European schools, which were mostly run by Christian missionaries, and there was an incident whereby a few Jews were converted by the missionaries into Christianity, and then to safeguard their religion, they opened their own schools. They have started admitting non-Jewish students since 1950s, and now most of the students are non-Jews. The last Jewish student to study in this school was in 1980s. The Jewish boys' school has almost an equal number of Hindus and Muslim students, while the Jewish girls' school has mostly Muslim students over here. And this is the Neve Shalom synagogue that I was talking about. It opened in 1810s, and it was broken later for constructing the Magen David, one of the largest synagogues in Asia, in 1880s, and again it was reconstructed in 1910s. And on the right is the Bethel synagogue, which is the second synagogue to be constructed in Calcutta. Over here you can see all the encroachments which have been taken place. The main entrance has been totally blocked from access. Here is the Magen David synagogue. The exterior from the outside, it looks like a church. So it is called Lal Gidja, or the Red Church by the locals. And the inside is synagogue. All these pillars and columns and marbles were brought from Italy at that time, and it was built in completely European Renaissance architecture, while the previous two were Arabian architecture and the second one was a mix. And it is one of the largest ones in Asia. And here is the last remnants of the community, of the 20 member strong community over here, the few. Regarding Nathan Kaz mentioned this quote that the few remaining Baghdadis carry their Indianness well. They are proud of India as the most hospitable country in the world towards the Jews. That's it. And finally, a few images from the Jewish cemetery. Over here is the epitaph of the Mordecai Cohen's grave. It is the only grave in the Jewish cemetery to have Bengali letters. Over at the bottom, you can see. The Bengali letters speak about Mordecai Cohen's love for the Bengali language, its culture, and about it originally hailing from Bangladesh and how he had to leave his country. And over in the cemetery, you can see the centrally located Gettysburg, where the religious texts are thrown down, therefore giving them a proper burial. That's it from my side. Thank you for the time. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Sayan, for the question, for the presentation. So we are having a kind of time limit here. I have to a little rush, but we can maybe take one or two questions if you have. If there is any. And I don't see anything, but I may ask you something, Sayan. You know, I knew about the Zoroastrian community in Mumbai, yes. You know, and as I read that, you know, they opened this debate of whether, you know, there could become some kind of intermarriages between Zoroastrians and you know, Hindus, because, you know, their number is also is very limited in Bombay. So I know that there are two opinions. One side would like to be more, you know, they're supporting intermarriages, but on the other hand, I think Zoroastrian priests a bit, you know, conservative about that. They're a bit reserved about that. You know, have you ever heard about any debate going on about the intermarriages also in concerning the Jewish community in Kolkata? I mean, or are they very strict about this? You know, do you know any kind of a debate on this?
Initially, in the colonial era, they were pretty much strict about intermarriages, because in the non-Jewish partner had to convert to Judaism when the British era. There was one instance. There is a famous scholar of Indian history, Benjamin Zachariah. His great-grandfather was actually a Muslim trader who originally hailed from Awadh. He was Arabic by culture, and he arrived in Calcutta. Over here, the Jews were actually the only people who spoke Arabic over here, so interacted with them, fell in love with a Jewish girl, and converted into Judaism and married her. And later shortened his name to M and anglicized the name from Zachariah to it became Zachariah extended. And that is one instance of a non-Jew converting to Judaism. And during my research, I found a great case. Actually, one Baghdadi Jewish woman, she actually fell in love with a Bengali Hindu man and married her. And when she was expelled from the community, and when she died, that Bengali man brought his wife to be buried in the Jewish cemetery in Calcutta that I showed. But she was denied a resting place over there as she has gone against the community. And so that man brought a land nearby to the cemetery and buried her there. And there a few more burials took place over there. There were actually 7 graves. And currently, as many Hindus came from East Pakistan after the partition, one family settled there, and they started to look up the grave, and they actually worship that grave as their family deity with flowers and incense in typical Hindu style. This is a pretty rare instance. And since after independence, there have been many instances of intermarriages in the Jewish community over here in Calcutta, and more or less they are accepted as long as they observe the Jewish rituals.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see also very similar trends in Turkey. I mean, I know that some issues, you know, sometimes you know, they are really denied any kind of an intermarriages. You know, if one also committed intermarriages, then he or she is really sometimes excluded. But lately, I also saw some certain incidences that you know. there is a much more inclination to also accept some marriages. So, trend is a bit changing. I know that Mohammed would know it much better than me, especially because he is specialized in the Jewish community in Çanakkale. But thank you very much. I didn't know anything about the Jewish community of Kolkata. I learned a lot. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
So I think now it will be best if we